Hello everyone, this is Justin Joseph, staff writer for Project COE.com, and yes, I've foregone recording myself for this video review so I can just get right to it and reveal that what I have to talk to you about today is none other than Condemned 2 Bloodshot for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, a sequel to the Xbox 360 launch title. Now bear in mind that as I speak about this, I'm assuming that you've already played Criminal Origins, or at least know what happened in it. So with that out there, I shall begin. Ethan Thomas returns as a troubled man without a job. He's resorted to alcoholism to deal with his mental problems, essentially seeing all the freaky demon crap that no one else can, and to top it all off, he's still the only person truly capable of putting a stop to the madness being caused by this mysterious evil force. The entire city is in panic thanks to rioting, looting, and general inability with regards to local law enforcement. Thus, our protagonist is unpleasantly surprised that after a hostile encounter with some locals influenced by whatever the heck is going on in these parts, he's summoned by his former employer, the SCU, to return after his 11-month suspension, right out of the blue. Well, apparently someone knows something that he doesn't, and that's what Ethan is after for pretty much the entire campaign. Who's responsible for turning his home upside down and making him see all the disturbing junk that he does? That's all I'm going to say about the plot, because I have a good chunk to discuss in light of the general gameplay. It involves 3 core concepts with regards to the main campaign: melee combat, gunplay, and investigation sequences. Well, doesn't that sound familiar? It should either way, because that's exactly how Criminal Origins functioned. However, Bloodshot does what every legitimate sequel should seek out to do, and that's take it all to the next 2 or 3 levels. Thankfully for all our sakes, that's exactly what Monolith and Sega accomplished, so kudos to them before I even spout off any details. With that melee combat, Condemned 2 really amazes with just how much you're able to do with your fists and feet alone, not to mention when actual physical pickups come into the equation. If you're crafty enough, you can now have Ethan combo the living daylights out of anyone that wishes to do him harm. Better yet, certain combinations of triggers or bumpers, in addition to stick clicking, can result in different reactions from your opponents. Now unfortunately, it can be frustratingly tough to string together some sinister actions because enemies apparently don't feel much pain, but overall, it's incredibly satisfying to beat someone down that stands in your way, and that especially goes for a weapon that might be in hand, like an electric conduit, steam pipe, or a foosball stick. Yes, a foosball stick. I personally, however, tend to favor the gunplay, which some gamers might write off as unbalanced because it's introduced much earlier than it was in Criminal Origins, not to mention that guns are more frequently available as you progress. Well, I don't really see it that way, because you have to resort to melee battle more than enough, so having the luxury to pop a cap with a revolver, 9mm, or my favorite, the assault rifle every now and then, is nothing that takes away from the experience. Truly it adds to your fulfillment, especially when you land headshots one after another, because unlike the unrealistic reactions of melee combat, the results of shooting someone are as they should be every time. Now, if what I've said so far is any indication, it's pretty obvious that I'm going to praise the investigation mechanics to the ends of the earth. Well, I'll do just that. Folks, despite the fact that you probably know all the right answers after finishing this game once, that knowledge simply doesn't compare with how cool it is to be a cop again in Condemned 2. You see, this time you don't rely on L.I. Rosa for all the necessary facts needed to solve the mystery like you did before. In Criminal Origins, you merely looked for clues, scanned them, and automatically sent the data to Rosa. However, this time it's all on your shoulders to figure out what Rosa should know to help you. This involves 2 concepts: question asking and evidence stacking. You see, when investigating a relevant scene in the game, you end up asking Rosa one of 3 possible questions about what's going on, and depending on your answers, you receive a rating based on how relevant the inquiry actually is. The same goes for the evidence. Say you find someone dead on the floor, and you're tasked with finding out the cause of death. Well, common sense tells you to examine the body in detail to see any possible hints or clues, and doing this has you not only determine initial findings, but the extricate details that make the result far more specific. So instead of something as simple as, say, a knife wound, you might have to decipher the angle of the blade's entry, whether it was more of a slice or a stab, and you get the idea. Thus, if you figure it all out on your own, without needing to consult a fellow gamer who's already played the game, or even an FAQ, the rewards are just great. So obviously I think Bloodshot is a lot of fun, but what about the presentation? Well, that's pretty sweet too. If you have a high-definition television, you'll enjoy well-done character models, grotesque environments decorated with black tar and all sorts of blood and gore, you know, general survival horror fare. It's not a perfect-looking game, mind you, but it certainly ranks up there. The only gripe I had with this is that some areas in the game are a little too dark on the default brightness setting, which unfairly leaves you open to attack that you can't distinguish where it's coming from. But if you up that up a few notches, no real problem. Audio-wise, Bloodshot is still a winner, just not nearly as much. The music is certainly more gripping than last time, but it's nothing award-winning either. The voice acting, however, is very well done, despite some over-the-top profanity. Every character is backed by a convincing actor or actress, and it's especially cool how the man behind Metal Gear Solid's Colonel Roy Campbell was responsible for the delivery of SCU Director Farrell. Thus it comes as no surprise that the sound effects are perfectly suited to the game's atmosphere, and do the justice of emphasizing every grunt, melee weapon strike, and bullet fired. That's why with all this captivating content, it's a downright shame that the developers chose to shoe in a multiplayer mode and an extra distraction called Bloodshot Fight Club. The latter is simply a few scenarios that are unlocked that you can mess around with a few times just to see where you end up ranking on a meaningless leaderboard. Online Deathmatch supports up to 8 participants, but given the core Condemned 2 gameplay, it just doesn't feel right because of crossover incompatibility. Who seriously wants to jump into a crowd of people trying to peg one another with melee weapons just to see who can say they killed first? The same goes for the other offering, which pits 3 SCU agents against 5 influenced players to test their survival skills. If you kill an agent, you take their place, and the cycle continues until the match is over. Pretty forgettable stuff, which begs you to wonder why it's even there to begin with. Oh well, what can you do? Either way, I do have a couple more criticisms that I could point out, but for that, I'll encourage you to hop over to my full written review on ProjectCOE.com, so you'll have to live with knowing for now that I've scored this title an 8.5 on 10, making Condemned 2 Bloodshot the latest silver medal recipient of our site. Thank you for tuning in to this latest video review. This is Justin Joseph again, and I'll be back over the next few weeks with the reviews for Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword, Dark Sector, and NHL 08. So look forward to that, and in the meantime, I'll be gearing up for more and more COE written content, so I'll see you soon.